On the happiest day of her life, she let the person who meant her harm drink the very poison that person prepared. She spots a hand hover over the third glass from the left. 3 seconds. A white pill drops and melts into the champagne. At first, she wants a softer explanation. Then, the truth lands. The place card under that flute has her name. This isn't clumsy, it's planned. Her chest tightens, but her head clears. She thinks of her classroom, her mother's voice, the vows she just made. She won't cause a scene and lose the story. She needs proof. She walks to the table and swaps the glasses. Quiet. Clean. The secret burns on her tongue, but she holds it. Proof first. Survival first. The mother-in-law returns, smiling, and drinks. The room cheers like nothing happened. She counts her breaths and chooses herself, her body, her name, her future. Not prey, witness. Those 3 seconds changed everything. Want to see why she stayed silent, what the cameras caught, and how one switch exposed it all? Watch till the end, and subscribe. The morning felt soft and golden. In the bridal room, Nia zipped the dress and cracked jokes that steadied her. Talia fixed a loose curl and whispered a prayer. Down the road, at Mercer Street Chapel, Mason waited with that open, earnest look she fell in love with. She told herself this is all she ever wanted, a simple life, a classroom full of books, a partner who chooses her every day, a knock. Evelyn stepped in with perfect timing and perfect taste. Compliments landed like glass beads. Beautiful, weightless, a little cold. The smile was right. The tone was right. The warmth never arrived. "So elegant," Evelyn said, as if approving a table setting. She thanked her anyway. She has learned to read subtext and let it pass. Love first, static later. Nia squeezed her hand. "You're ready." She believed she was. Yet a quiet thought slid in and sat still. Happiness is thin as crystal. It shines. It sings when touched. It can break. She breathed around that thought and held on to the day. She would walk down the aisle and choose joy even if the edge felt sharp. Mercer Street Chapel glowed in candlelight. Vows were simple and sure. The kiss was easy, like breath. Laughter rose and folded around them. Richard stood near the front, posture formal, expression unreadable. Evelyn dabbed at one eye with a lace handkerchief. Graceful, composed. Every inch the mother of the groom in a photo spread. She glanced toward them and smiled. The room saw devotion. She saw precision. The curve of that smile did not touch the eyes. It was a gesture, executed without error. Something in her chest answered with a careful chill. Still, the music swelled. The recessional began. Petals scattered beneath their steps. She told herself to store this moment like a keepsake. The hand in hers, the promise that felt strong enough to hold weather. Applause followed them into the air outside. Cameras flashed. Congratulations came in waves. She met them all with gratitude, with hope. And yet, as guests spilled toward Rosecrest, the memory of that not-quite smile lingered. Not a warning bell, not yet. More like a faint buzz in a quiet room. She tucked it away, the way one tucks away a thread cut too close to the seam. Rosecrest glittered. 300 guests. Champagne like sunrise. A slow song drifted through the hall. He danced with his mother, careful and kind, their steps practiced. She watched and tried to feel only tenderness. Then the look came, polite, polished, a degree colder than the room required. Old moments surfaced, a string of small cuts. "Teaching's sweet, dear, but have you thought about something bigger? Your family's lovely. Where are they from originally? We can always postpone and do it right." Each comment tiny, tidy, deniable, none fatal. Together, a steady bleed. She smiled through it all because that is what the night demanded. Because love is worth some weather. Nia touched her elbow. "Breathe. You're radiant." She did breathe. She laughed with cousins, posed with friends, found the light where it was. Across the room, Evelyn accepted compliments with ease. The perfect dress, the perfect hair, the perfect narrative. When the song ended, the DJ teased toasts. Staff set a neat row of flutes on the head table, place cards tucked beneath thin stems. She felt the buzz again, a thread tugging at the edge. She decided to ignore it and fix her lip color instead. When she returned, the hall had shifted. Guests drifted to their seats. The head table waited like a stage set, flutes lined in a precise gleam. Her place was third from the left. She knew because she had set her card there with a small, private smile. Across the room, a figure moved with intention. Evelyn, alone. No audience. She reached the table and paused. One careful glance to each side. Then she leaned in, reading the names like a librarian sorting spines. Her hand hovered over the third flute from the left. Time thinned. The hand opened. A small white pill slipped into the gold and vanished. No splash, only a soft swallow of light. The fingers withdrew. The clutch closed. The posture reset into grace, as if nothing had happened. From a distance, panic hammered to be let out. Disbelief tried to bargain. Maybe a vitamin. Maybe a mistake. But the place card under that glass was not a rumor. It was her name. And the glance around the empty stretch of table was not carelessness. It was secrecy. The DJ's voice warmed the room, inviting everyone to sit for the toasts. Her heart counted beats. 1, 2, 3. Then she started toward the table. She stops at the head table and weighs 2 roads. Call it out and risk chaos. Or hold the truth and let proof do the talking. Her hand steadies. She slides her flute into Evelyn's place and brings Evelyn's clean glass to her own. The switch clicks into place inside her chest. The DJ asks guests to rise. Laughter quiets. Mason takes his seat, eyes soft and trusting. He does not see her choice. He does not see the stake she just drove into the ground. Evelyn returns with a gracious smile. She lifts the glass that was meant for the bride. The toast rises like a tide. Love forever. Cheers. She drinks. A long swallow. Another. Heat climbs the bride's throat. Shame knocks, begging for a scene that would save her dignity now and cost her everything later. She refuses it. She chooses a harder courage. She keeps the secret burning behind her teeth. She will pay the price for silence if it buys the truth. The room sits in light. Inside, she waits in shadow, counting heartbeats. The effect blooms fast. Evelyn blinks as if the chandeliers brightened. She sways. A laugh bursts out, too high, too free. Conversation stalls. Silverware stills. She waves an arm like a girl at a concert and staggers toward the dance floor. Phones rise, a ripple of, "Oh my God." The music is slow, but Evelyn writhes to a rhythm only she can hear. Mason stands, startled. Richard hisses her name, tries to guide her back. She slips away, giggling, lipstick smeared into a careless smile. She reaches the cake. 5 tiers, sugar flowers, money in buttercream. "So beautiful," she says, thick and dreamy, and plunges her hand into the bottom tier. Frosting clings to pearls. She eats with both hands. She throws a fistful into the crowd. A guest yelps. Laughter breaks, then dies into shock. The bride does not move. Her lungs hold air like glass. The family's name trembles on a ledge. Dollars melt down white lace. This is what the pill was meant to do to her. The crowd records the wrong woman. Richard and Mason reach her at last. She fights them, then folds at the knees beside the ruined cake. Frosting streaks her dress. Her eyes slide, unfocused. The room turns thin and far away. Someone calls for help. Someone else cries. Theo edges in, face drained. "What's wrong with Mom?" No one answers. The bride feels the night split down the middle. She should speak. She should shout. She should make the truth stand up and wave. Her throat locks. Fear says wait. Evidence says wait. Sirens bleed through the doors. Paramedics kneel and speak in calm phrases. A cuff tightens on a wrist. A light tests a pupil. Evelyn mumbles that she feels amazing, then slumps. They lift her onto a stretcher. Richard climbs in. The doors shut. The reception breaks like a dropped tray. Guests drift out in clusters, whispering, still filming as if proof might save them from gossip later. Mason turns to his wife, confused and hurt. "I don't understand." She cannot bear that look. The night of vows becomes a night of questions. St. Bridget smells like antiseptic and old coffee. The bride sits in lace that now feels like costume. Mason's hand covers his face. He says nothing. Theo stares at the floor. Nia offers water and a look that says, "I'm here." She tries to force words up. They clot. What if no one believes her? What if they call it hysteria? What if speaking first makes her the villain? She has seen that movie before. She swallows and waits for a voice with authority and a chart. A doctor arrives. He asks about medications. He asks about alcohol. Richard appears from a hallway, eyes red. The doctor clears his throat and uses a word that lands like metal. Diazepam. Significant amount. Likely 10 to 15 milligrams. The room tilts. Mason lifts his head. Could someone have put it in her drink? The doctor says it is possible. He cannot say how likely. The bride hears her heart answering from a dark hallway. Possible is the first door. Truth is the next. She looks at her husband and knows the next part will cut. They gather in a small room with low light and too many chairs. The question hangs between them. Did you see anyone near the glasses? Mason's voice is careful, as if gentleness might keep the answer from breaking him. She nods once. Then she says it plain. I saw her at the head table. She read the names. She dropped something into my glass. I switched them. The words fall into the room and ring like a struck bowl. Richard explodes. Impossible! She would never. Theo flinches. Nia takes the bride's hand under the table. Mason does not shout. He just looks stunned, then wounded, then lost. I needed proof, she says, softer now. If I yelled, it would be my word against hers. I chose to survive. Silence soaks the edges. The doctor coughs and mentions contacting the police if there's suspicion of foul play. The word police chills the air. Mason stands. He says he needs time. He steps into the corridor and keeps going. The bride sits very still. She has told the truth and may have broken her own heart to do it. He didn't come home. He texted that he was staying at Jordan's for a few nights. He said he needed time to think. The dress lay folded across a chair, lace wrinkled and dim. She sat beside it and let the quiet fill every corner. Her phone lit up again and again. Clips of the reception spread with laughing captions. Mother of the groom loses it. Rich family scandal. The comments were a tangle of pity, mockery, and guesses. She scrolled once, then stopped. She powered the screen down and held it face to the table like a hot coal. Love had been a warm room this morning. Now it felt like a hallway with no doors. She tried to picture his face softening, his voice saying, I believe you. The picture kept slipping. Nia came by with tea and blunt comfort. You told the truth. You're not alone. But night made every wall taller. She lay awake in the thin blue hours and counted choices, counted costs. To save her name, she had risked her marriage. The math hurt. The math was still right. Morning brought a knock. Detective Dana Brooks stood with a small notebook and an even voice. She asked to sit. She asked for the story from the beginning. No rushing, no disbelief hiding in the questions. The words finally flowed the way they had wanted to last night. The bridal room, the head table, the third glass from the left, the place card, the pill that vanished like it belonged there. Dana listened. She asked crisp, simple things. What time? Who was near? Whether the venue had cameras. Rosecrest, yes. Multiple angles, likely. The detective wrote that down like a key. We'll request the footage, she said. If it's there, we'll find it. Something in the bride's spine eased. Being heard does that. Being believed a little does that more. She signed a statement. She thanked the detective for treating the truth like it deserved a chair. When the door closed, the apartment stayed quiet. But the quiet no longer rang of doubt. It sounded like waiting with a purpose. The phone lit with his name that afternoon. His voice was careful, almost formal. He said the police had come to the hospital. They had spoken to his mother. She denied everything. He said he needed space, said those words like they were a charity he could afford. He added one more thing. The detectives were pulling the tapes from Rosecrest. The venue kept everything for liability. If there was something to see, they would see it. The line went silent. Neither of them breathed for a count. "When I know more, I'll call," he said, and ended it. She stood in the little kitchen and stared at the sink like it might answer. The hours after that learned how to stretch. She made toast and didn't taste it. She showered and felt none of the water. She pictured the head table from above. She pictured the hand. She pictured the switch. Truth was a room with a door now. All she could do was wait for someone with a key. The police conference room was too bright. Richard sat stiff. Theo's hands wouldn't be still. Mason kept his eyes on the table until the laptop screen blinked awake. Then he looked, and did not look away. The footage showed an empty head table. A timestamp ticked along, quiet and relentless. Evelyn entered the frame, composed. She glanced left, then right. She leaned down and read each name. Her hand hovered over the third flute from the left. A small white object fell. It dissolved and disappeared. She straightened and walked away. 2 minutes later, the bride appeared. She stood very still. She moved one glass, then another. The exchange was neat, almost plain. She walked out of frame. The clip ended. No one spoke. The sound of breath might have been loud. Mason swore under his breath, soft and broken. Theo whispered, "Mom." Richard tried to speak and found nothing to hold. In that silence, the camera had done what arguments couldn't. It had picked a side without anger. It had put the lie down and closed its eyes. Dana laid out the rest, one fact at a time. Evelyn's sister had a prescription for diazepam. She had been staying with Evelyn the week before the wedding. 5 pills were missing. She kept count. She had told the detectives so, and the numbers matched the hospital report. 10 to 15 milligrams. Enough to set a trap disguised as a toast. Motive sat there, familiar as a family portrait. Control. Image. Keeping a son under glass. The detective didn't name it that way, but the shape was clear. Richard stared at his hands as if they no longer belonged to him. Theo went quiet in the way that means a ground floor gave out. Dana said the word deliberate. She said the word intentional. They were not sharp. They were final. The bride felt the world tilt back toward level. Not joy, not victory. More like gravity returning to its post. Outside the station, air moved easier in her chest. The truth was no longer something she carried alone. It had walked into the light and held. Now came the bruise of what it cost, and the work of healing what could still be saved. He showed up at dusk, eyes raw, voice low. He didn't ask to come in. He stepped forward and fell into her arms. The apology came out in pieces. He said he should have believed her. He said he knew her. He said sorry until the word went thin. She held him like something almost lost. The tears were quiet at first, then heavier. Shame tried to stand between them. Love moved it aside. He said the camera didn't just show what happened. It showed who she was when no one believed her. Steady, clear, braver than the room. She breathed that in like medicine. She told him she had been afraid of losing him more than anything. He said he was not going anywhere again. They stood in the small kitchen with their foreheads touching. No speeches, no fixes. Just breath sinking back to a shared rhythm. The hurt didn't vanish. It softened at the edges. Love outweighed the worst of the day. It wasn't a finish. It was a first stitch back. Evelyn turned herself in with Victor Langford at her side. Statements crafted like gauze. Devoted mother, years of charity, deep concern for her son's big day. Cameras ate it up. Commentators called it a misunderstanding that grew teeth. Headlines tried on sympathy like a borrowed coat. Reporters swarmed the apartment building. They called her cell. They waited outside her school. The principal asked her to take a leave until things quiet down. Paid, but still a subtraction. She folded the letter and felt the floor shift under money and pride. She had done nothing wrong. She was the one stepping aside. Victor went on local news and spoke in smooth ellipses. Stress, anxiety, a mix-up. He did not say theft. He did not say intent. He said presumption of innocence until the words sounded like perfume. She closed the blinds and sat with Nia. Bills would still come. Rent would still be due. Her name would still be a headline for strangers to chew. The cost of surviving rarely arrives clean. The talk shows circled like birds. Clips played on repeat. Strangers parsed her face for motive. The cruel takes outpaced the kind ones. She deleted the apps. She let the accounts go dim. Not surrender. Strategy. Peace is a boundary you build where you can. He chose her in public and private. He said it to anyone who asked and to the people who didn't. Theo drifted, caught between a mother who had fallen hard and a brother who had chosen a wife. He texted in fragments. She answered with gentle lines. She didn't ask him to pick a side. Love doesn't need a witness stand. Their apartment learned to be a quiet country. They cooked. They watched old movies. They made a list of small things that still worked. Hot tea, good blankets, the way morning light lands on a book. When the shows tried to bait them, they said nothing. When a neighbor whispered, they smiled and kept walking. Not every fire deserves air. Court gave the chaos a frame. ADA Keisha Monroe laid out motive, opportunity, and chemistry. She spoke in clear lines. Stolen pills, the timing at the head table, the dose that scrambles a person into spectacle. She asked the judge for tight conditions and got them. The case would go forward. Victor countered with a tidy myth. A nervous mother, a borrowed pill for stress, a tragic mix-up between identical glasses. He gestured toward charity boards and spotless records like shields that could stop a clock. Judge Eliza Davenport listened without leaning on either story. She ruled with a steady voice. The evidence met the bar. The charges would stand. Release with conditions. No contact with the bride. No tampering. A date set that sounded near and far at once. They walked out into the hallway and felt the cold air of consequence. This wasn't gossip anymore. It had a docket number. It had a season. Truth had made it past the first gate, and the next gate waited. Keisha met her in a room that smelled like old paper. She taught her how to hold a question and answer only that question. She taught her how silence can be a shield when a lawyer wants a slip. They practiced the hardest parts until the words felt lived in. The 3 seconds, the switch, the reason she chose proof over panic. The prosecutor warned her what would come. They would call her vindictive. They would say she set a trap. They would try to turn self-protection into malice. Truth is your ground, Keisha said. Stand on it. Don't chase them. She went home and spoke her story to the empty room. She said it in the shower. She said it while stirring soup. Each telling sanded a splinter. He quizzed her gently and kissed her forehead when she rolled her eyes. By night, fear still scratched at the door. By morning, it was softer. Her weapon wasn't anger, it was clarity. Court began like a held breath. ADA Keisha Monroe stood first. She drew a clean line from motive to act to harm. A plan to humiliate a bride. Stolen pills. A quiet moment at a head table. A dose meant to turn a woman into a spectacle. She asked the jurors to protect dignity with the same care they protect law. Victor rose and offered another picture. A loving mother. A long history of charity. Nerves on a big day. A pill for anxiety. 2 identical glasses. A misunderstanding that grew fangs. He asked the jurors to see the human, not the headline. The jury listened without blinking. No nods, no tells. The room held 2 narratives like mismatched mirrors. One reflected evidence, one reflected image. She watched the panel and felt how much of her name still lived in their hands. Keisha sat. Victor adjusted a cuff. The judge noted the rules and the burden. Truth versus presentation, duty versus sympathy. The day moved forward, slow and heavy. as if the floor itself needed to choose what it would hold. The DJ took the stand. He laid out the order of the night, when the toasts were scheduled, when the music dipped. He confirmed the minute the announcement went out. He confirmed the pause as the room settled. The catering manager followed. She described the head table and its neat row of flutes. She explained the place cards under each stem. She said staff cleared the area 15 minutes before toasts. No one should have been there. Then came the sister with the pill bottle. She said 5 diazepam were missing after a week at Evelyn's house. She kept a log. She was sure. Her voice shook, but did not break. The small pieces began to click. The timeline grew tight enough to hum. The moments for tampering narrowed to a thin window. The danger was not vague anymore. It wore minutes and seconds like a badge. She sat very still and let the relief sting. The night had logic. The logic pointed away from rumor and straight at intent. A life does not need a guess when a clock can testify. She took the oath and found her breath. Keisha asked simple questions. She answered in simple pieces. 3 seconds. A white pill disappearing. The place card with her name. The choice to switch. The choice to stay silent because proof would be stronger than panic. She said she chose to live and to be believed. Victor stood and sharpened the air. He said the switch was cruel. He said she wanted a scene. He said she hated the mother-in-law and saw a chance to ruin her. He asked if she enjoyed watching the aftermath. Each word tried to put malice where fear had stood. She did not let it in. I protected myself, she said. I did not know what the pill would do. I knew it was not meant for healing. I knew my word would be called hysteria. I chose evidence. Her voice did not rise. It did not plead. It held. The jurors wrote and watched. The judge watched too. Truth was not fireworks. It was steadiness that did not budge when someone pushed. A video analyst walked the room through frames. He pointed to the small things that make up intent. The pause, the scan of names, the hover over a single flute, the drop, the dissolve. He said the behavior matched deliberate placement, not accident. He spoke like a carpenter measuring wood. A toxicologist followed. She named the dose range and its effects: disinhibition, loss of balance, slurred speech, judgment stripped to nerves. She said 15 milligrams could turn a toast into a public unmaking. At that size, a smaller woman could fare worse. The science did not shout. It settled. It gave the jurors a floor without soft boards. Image can be brushed and lit. Chemistry cannot be coaxed. Angle and motive can be spun. A timestamp does not care who is watching. She felt the room absorb it. Not triumph. Something steadier. The kind of quiet that takes away the last refuge of maybe. And the case now had bones. It could stand without leaning on anyone's reputation. Evelyn took the stand in a pale suit and a practiced calm. Victor asked gentle questions. She said she was anxious that day. She said she borrowed a pill from her sister. She said she must have mixed up the glasses. She said she would never harm anyone, least of all family. Each answer polished the same idea: confusion, not cruelty. Keisha rose and began to peel phrases apart. Why read the place cards if confused? Why not tell a server immediately if a pill fell? Why no mention to paramedics, to doctors, to anyone who could help? Why a sister's pills instead of a prescription of her own? Memory was crisp where it helped, fogged where it hurt. The calm trembled. You wanted control, Keisha said, voice even. You wanted your son back. A muscle jumped in Evelyn's jaw. She took him, Evelyn blurted, sudden and raw. She took my boy. Silence landed hard. Possession spoke where innocence had stood. The jurors looked down and then up, as if hearing a key turn in a lock. The mask had not shattered. It had slipped enough to show the hand underneath. The jury filed in with faces that gave nothing. The foreperson stood. Guilty on attempted poisoning. Guilty on reckless endangerment. The words landed with the weight of doors closing. The judge spoke of harm, intent, and the duty to protect. 3 years in state prison, 2 years of supervised probation, 10 years of no contact, restitution for medical costs and legal fees, $75,000, each term set like stone. Evelyn folded as if the sentence pulled a cord inside her. Victor steadied her arm. Richard stared at a point past everyone. Theo blinked hard and kept breathing like it was work. He looked small in the wood and light. He looked at his wife and found no triumph there. Only relief edged with grief. The gavel fell. The room shifted from argument to aftermath. He took her hand. He did not feel clean joy. He felt justice made visible. He felt the price counted in money and in names. He whispered thank you to the truth for holding. The headlines turned from guessing to facts. Richard filed for divorce and signed papers with a flat jaw. The country club cut ties. Boards asked for resignations. The glossy life unraveled thread by thread. Theo started therapy. He slept at his brother's place for a while and learned how to eat when food tasted like cardboard. She went back to her classroom after the storm quieted. The first day, her students pretended nothing had happened. Then, a girl stayed after the bell and said, "I'm glad you're here." It broke something and fixed something at once. The paycheck returned. Not riches, but steadiness. Bills were paid on time again. Pride reknit itself in small stitches. At night, they talked less about the trial and more about dinners and books. He drove Theo to appointments and waited in lobbies. They learned to mark wins that did not trend. A full night of sleep, a week with no headlines, a morning without dread. The family had been cracked. It was not shattered. The proof lived in ordinary days. The fear did not vanish when the verdict came. It stayed in dreams, and in the way she watched a glass. They saw Dr. Reeves and made a map of triggers. She said the body remembers until you teach it new endings. He wrote that down and took it home like homework. They practiced breathwork. They practiced trust in simple things. Shared meals, open phones, aligned plans. An email arrived from a documentary team. The word true crime made her stomach clench. Then she thought of women who sit in doubt without cameras to save them. She said yes with conditions. Control over their interview. Space for resources. No glamorizing harm. He agreed. Theo said it might help people like him who live in the blast radius. Telling it hurt. Watching the footage hurt more. Yet something in her loosened each time she named the 3 seconds without shaking. Viewers wrote letters that were tender and fierce. Some said the story kept them safe. Meaning arrived where pain had lived. Not a cure, a purpose. Years layered over the wound. On a terrace in Italy, 10 summers later, he gave her a small silver pendant shaped like a champagne flute. Not a joke, a marker. For the switch that saved us, he said. She wore it against her pulse. It felt like choosing herself, again and again, without apology. 2 years after that, she saw the woman in a grocery store aisle, gray hair, a sweater gone soft, an apology that did not beg for entry. She said the words she had never thought she would say, "I forgive you." Then she set the boundary that made the forgiveness real. No relationship, no access, peace without reunion. The woman nodded and wept. The aisle went quiet. A quarter-century after the wedding, they renewed their vows. No drama, no cameras. Family and friends stood close while they promised what they had already proved. When the toast came, she lifted her glass without tremor. Victory did not taste like triumph. It tasted like calm. The story that began with 3 seconds became a compass. Trust your instincts when they whisper. Ask for proof when your name is on the line. Choose yourself without making a show of it. Love that survives harm is not naive. It is practiced. It is built on clear eyes, not easy words. Money has a cost in both directions. They paid in lost wages and lawyer fees, then rebuilt with steady work and time. Reputation fell and rose again because evidence is louder than rumors when you give it a stage. The right to live safely is not dramatic. It is daily. She claimed it by planning, not pleading. Love grew up. Boundaries kept it safe. Telling the story turned pain into help for people she would never meet. If this reached you, share it with someone who needs proof that quiet courage matters. Subscribe to hear more true, hard-won stories of Black women who turned traps into victories. One decision, one boundary, one truth at a time.